start with the today's training of the Hikvision switches introduction training. So I think let's go ahead. Looking today now we are focused on the Hikvision switch platform, but the Hikvision switch platform is a part of transmission and display product line. So it consists with the monitors and commercial displays. I think we have already covered the video wall part of this training. I think you guys have already have idea about this if you attended to our training session. And we also have cables, both network cables as well as the coaxial cables, and decoders and controllers, as well as transmission, uh, including wireless bridges as well. So the switching part is just only a single segment of this transmission and display product line. So I just gave you an initial idea about where this switch segment is placed on our Hikvision product system. Yashanta, shall we give them a small explanation about the naming rule of our Hikvision switches?
Yeah, definitely, Varuna. One of the key facts that we cannot forget is the naming rule when we talk about the product system. So as Varuna explained, we have positioned Hikvision switches in the transmission and display product category as a subcategory. So it is very critical for you to have an initial idea how these products are modelized or how we have given it a name according to the rules. So as normal, Varuna, as you can see, like a normal Hikvision product, all of our Hikvision products start with DS. We have a DS dash part. After that, you can see we are starting with number 3. So if you are familiar with our Hikvision naming rules, you probably know the cameras, otherwise we call it at front-end devices, they are starting with DS2. And we have the built-in products starting with DSK. Like that, it is very easy to understand this is a switch because it is starting with number 3. And there's a letter after number 3, which is very important. If it is an E, it denotes for indoor switch, which means for internal use. But if it has a T, which is most probably industrial switch, definitely to build for sustain the industrial environment. So first thing you can understand is by letter number 3, it is a switch, and when it has an E, definitely it's an indoor. Otherwise, we can say it as a consumer or maybe a kind of a server room kind of a switch. But if you are having a T letter there, definitely it's an industrial switch built to sustain the industrial environment. So after that, we have another very important digit that denotes whether the switch is managed or whether it has a manageable functionality. So you can see from here, we have 4 categories. If it is 0, definitely it is an unmanaged switch. If it is a 1, it is a managed switch. And if it is a 2, it is a full managed switch. And finally, we have the layer 3, if it is number 3. So we will discuss in detail what are these categories and how we can identify by each features depending on the categorization. And also we have another important digit, which is after this 0. After this 0, this actually is a 4th number or 4th digit in the naming rule, which denotes for the number of like photophore category. Basically, if it is number 1, all are 100 ports. If it is number 3, it is a mixed port of 100 and 1000. If it is 5, as you can see, all are gigabit ports. Also, we have, if it is number 7, which is a mix of gigabit and 10G ports as well. So you can get an idea what kind of a port mixture that this switch is carrying just by looking at the naming rule. And also finally, this is very important. You can get an easy idea about how many ports available in this switch. So here in this example, you can see 26 ports are available in this switch. So now I think this part is very clear to you. For the first 6 digits, 3 is very clear. It is straightforward. It is standing for switches. Then if you have E or T, it's either indoor or industrial. Then there's a number 0, 1, 2, 3. That will be the functionality of the switch, whether it's unmanaged, managed, full managed, or layer 3 switch. Then finally we have after the categorization, we have the port mix, whether it's a yeah, 10 to 100 ports, or 100 to 1000 ports, or 10G ports. So you can get an idea. And finally, you have the number of ports. So this part, I think it is very clear to all of you. Then finally, we have some other additional features which are coming with the switches. Specifically, some desktop switches, as you can see, coming with the plastic casing. So in case you will see a D letter here, you will see definitely that is a plastic casing. Then if you have a HP or a kind of a P letter, that will be definitely PoE switch. Otherwise, we can say it's as power over coaxial. And also in the power over coaxial, we have certain standards, and the most power can be delivered through high PoE. So if you see HP, otherwise high PoE, that means that is a high PoE switch. If you just see a P letter, that is a PoE switch. And also if we see a F letter, that is a total fiber switch, which all the ports are optical. And if you see TF, definitely it is a mix of optical and electrical ports. And if you don't see any letters here, definitely that's a non-PoE switch. So those are the letters. So there after that you have a dash. After dash you have again immediately a English letter. There can be two letters in that there. If it is a S, that is a project model. If it is a E, that is for distribution model, more of a consumer product. So after dash, the second English letter here denotes whether it's a smart managed switch or a non-smart managed switch. So here definitely we have a smart managed series, one of our key spotlight product series. So we will also discussing about this series today during our training, which you can get a clear idea why it is important. Also, after that, you will see a slash. With a slash, there can be another again two variations actually. One is the M, which is a low power version, and HS means harsh environment version. If there's nothing here, that means it's a standard version. And finally, after that, you have a English letter within the brackets that can go from A to Z, just the product upgrade number. So every time we release a product, we keep on doing continuous improvement to those products, and the same product can be released as newer versions. So we'll just maintain the version number in this letter in the brackets. So with this, I think everyone can get a clear idea. When they just look at a number or a name of a model name of a switch, you can easily say how many ports it has, whether those ports are 100M ports or 10G ports, whether this switch is a layer 1, a layer 2 switch or layer 3 switch, whether it's managed or full managed, whether it's an indoor, industrial, and also it can say whether it has a PoE. PoE also separate into two areas, whether it's a normal standard PoE or high PoE, and whether there are any optical ports or electrical ports involved, and whether this model is suitable for project or distribution. And of course, the power is a low power version of harsh environment. So very rich information that you can get if you have a clear idea about what these numbers and letters are standing for. So with that, Varun, I think we can proceed to our next segment of the training, which we talk about the, initially we have separated this training into 4 key areas, where we talk about the switch overview, and we talk about the distribution products, and we talk about the project products, as well as the application solutions that we can definitely use these products into. So with that, Varuna, would you please go through the overview of the part where we discuss what are the switches and our product family and problem analysis?
Yeah, sure. Let's go through it. Okay. First of all, let's see what actually switch is. A switch is a hardware unit that connects a device in the network. So what it will do is it will receive a it will connect devices in the network, and by using its network using packet switching to receive, and it will forward data to the destination devices. So this is a basic explanation, a basic understanding of switch. So we will go through the slides and understand about their classifications and many more features in the upcoming slides as well. So here we have classified the switches regarding three categories. The first one, as you can see, is the OSI models. In these models, the switches that are running, that are working in the data link layer are called the layer 2 switches. Here you can see uh, in the OSI models, the switches running in the data link layer are called layer 2 switches, and the switches that are running in the network layer are called layer 3 switches. And that's how we are categorizing switches based on the OSI models. In the middle, we have categorized switches using the management type of the switch. And there are two types. There are managed switches and unmanaged switches. And these managed switches, we can manage through through the console itself or through a web interface. And for the unmanaged switches, there are no managements. You can just plug and play those devices. On the right hand side, we have done the classification according to the power supply output to the end devices of the switches. So there are PoE switches that provide power with the network connectivity as well, and there are switches without the PoE functions that are only able to do data transmission. We have indicated how we can use switches according to these uh, layers. First, looking at the access layer, the switches that are being used in the access layer are mostly connected to the front-end devices like cameras and computers. Likewise, those devices are the ones that are normally connected to these access switches, and normally these switches are low-cost switches and they have high port density as well. Now going forward to the aggregation level, here you can see all these multiple of access switches are connected to a single aggregation switches. So the switches that are being used in the aggregation switch is kind of more advanced compared to the access kind of more advanced compared to the switches that are being used in the access layer. Going to the core layer, as you can see, every of the aggregation switch has been connected to this core switch. So normally this core switch is a switch with a higher performance and higher throughput, and this facilitates to deliver optimized and reliable backbone transport in the network. Actually, this is not actually related to the switch field, kind of to the CCTV surveillance side. When you are using an analog camera, normally you have to use two separate cables, one cable to transmit data and another cable to transmit power. But if you are using a network camera with the PoE function, you can transmit both data and power at the same cable. So some switches have this PoE functionality, it means power over Ethernet. So because of that, the wiring would be easy. So there will be no hassle to lay two cables, and uh, the cost will be considerably considering the material and branch you are using. It may be get higher or lower, it depends, and it will be easy to install as well, because if you are using an external power supply, you must get the power near the CCTV camera and you have to install a separate power supply there, and you also have to take care of if there is outside camera, you have to think of the waterproofing these power supplies as well. So it will be a really easy operation if you use this PoE function. We can see switches that are being used in some of the switches that are being in the distribution product lineup. On the left corner, you can see IT products. IT products means these products does not have PoE capability. That means these switches are non-PoE switches. these IT products, there are two categories mainly: these plastic desktop switches as well as steel case switches. And we will talk about this in a more detailed manner in later stage of this presentation. And moving on to the other switch types that are available in the distribution product lineup, we got unmanaged PoE as well as harsh environment switches as well. This unmanaged PoE we have categorized to 100 Mbps as well as the 1000 Mbps as well. And between these two classifications, we also have classified it according to our levels, our value and pro series as well. And compared to the value series and pro series has more PoE budget. You will see if when you are looking through this table, the pro series has high power. It has more PoE budget compared to the our value series. Here you can see an overview of project product switches. On the left hand side, you can see the unmanaged switches. There you got industrial switches that can be used in industrial environment as well as 1000 Mbps switches as well. And then there are web managed switches. There are from 100 Mbps range, and there are also from the 1000 Mbps range as well. And under those categories, we also have different models with different PoE budgets, and there are also full managed switches and with 100 Mbps and 1000 Mbps capabilities. Under those categories also we have different models with different PoE budgets as well. And the lower right corner, sorry, in the lower corner, you can see the our L3 switches. We got two L3 models in our L3 switch category, and it supports up to 1000 Mbps as well. We just had an overview about our distribution and project products. Now we will go in detail about these products. About the here now we are going to talk about distribution products. So let's go ahead and see what we have in our distribution product lineup. Yasanta, can we inform them about these our product highlights and of these features a little bit?
Of course, Varuna, talking about the distribution products, there are many actually key highlights. So one of them is the PoE power supply, because these switches are specifically designed for CCTV systems. So as you can see, most are, except for the desktop series, other all switches are equipped with PoE power supply, and we are actually the all switches are complying with the international IEEE standards. As you can see, we are using the AF, AT, BT PoE standards, where you can see we have recommended what kind of cameras that should be used with each standard. For example, IEEE 802.3 AF normally is when the PoE port power is less than 15 watts, and we have again the AT, which is less than 30 watts, and we also have BT, which is less than 60 watts. Also in the same BT we have another version which is less than 100 as well. So depending on each PoE standard, you can select, like for example, if you are using one line or two line cameras. So how do we identify whether it's a one line or two line? It's very easy. We have our naming rule starting from DS2CD. So you type the 2CD, then there's a letter 2, 3. So that is the series of the camera. So very easy to identify. You are starting with DS dash 2CD, then you have the series. So mostly, as you can see, one line and two line series IP cameras are having less features and less processing capabilities. Then there's low power consumption. Therefore, with the IEEE 802.3 AF is more suitable for one line and two line cameras. And if you are having any 3, 4, 5 series cameras, definitely you can go with 80. And if you are having any kind of a PT set camera that require higher power, because you have to power the PT set motors as well at the same time, then you can go with a high PoE switch. So that is the initial advantage, otherwise we can say it as a highlight, that our using of a Hikvision PoE switch. And going forward, our switches are very well capable of handling the PoE power intelligently. There are many things that comes into our mind when we talk about PoE. Let's say we plug a non-PoE device and whether it will burn the device, and how it handles when the PoE power is not enough. So there are so many questions, and now we can actually break it down to two areas, because we have to first detect whether the device is supporting PoE. So that functionality is already available with Hikvision PoE switches. And so second option is whether how are we going to power this through PoE. So definitely there is a built-in chip which can identify whether the particular device is supporting PoE. Then this helps to prevent any damages happening to the non-PoE device. That is the one highlight of our PoE switch. Then talking about the power, normally we have a PoE budget. Maximum number of wattage can be given out from the switch to power these devices. So in any case, when the PoE budget exceeds, the low priority ports will be disconnected. So automatically it is capable of disconnecting the low priority port. I will share what will be the low priority ports in the upcoming slides. So you can plug your high critical cameras to the high priority ports and it will be up and running without any issues, even the power is overloaded. Then also it is capable of powering the devices on demand, and which is a very good thing when we talk about having the stable and long-term usage of these devices. So that is one highlight of our product switches in the distribution series. And also we are the only company to offer 300-meter long transmission distance for IP cameras, and you can see with the PoE budget and the PoE range can come to 300 meters. There's a small video. We'll have just look at the video. You can see there's a standard 305-meter cable roll where we are connecting to a standard high PoE switch, and this is a PTZ camera, and you will see in the video how it works. As you can see in the video, it is able to provide you a stable connection to the camera, and this is not recommended to connect to another switch. This is definitely when you are connecting the switch to another camera only. So definitely keep that in mind. So you're not able to connect another switch using this 300-meter distance. In that case, you have to at least definitely use fiber. So here, eliminating the use of fiber, you can have a 300-meter distance for an IP camera. And there are a couple of trade-offs as well. The bandwidth actually drops it to 10 Mbps, but that is well sufficient for an IP camera to operate. As you know, even a 4 megapixel camera can be using only 4 Mbps bandwidth. So 10 Mbps is well enough to handle a camera. And also, you have to keep in mind, to achieve 300 meters, you have to use Cat6. If you are using Cat5 or any lower grade cable than Cat6, definitely it drops, and you can get up to 250 meters. And if you are interested in getting detailed test reports about these 300-meter tests, you can talk to us. We will share our details in the latter part of the training, where you can write to us and get some clarification, as well as if you want to see the reports also, we can share with you. So definitely there's another thing to keep in mind. There's an extend mode switch. As you can saw on the video, he first turned the switch on before using the extend mode. So definitely your switches should be supporting the extend mode. There are many switches actually supporting the extended PoE supply, where you can use it by turning on the switch on the behind your network switch. And another thing is, I mentioned that if the PoE budget is high, there'll be some low priority ports which will be automatically disconnected. So in our PoE switches, you might have seen this kind of a segregation where it is some ports are highlighted in red color. So normally we call them VIP ports, which have the more priority in terms of event switching, in terms of handling their traffic. These ports are given more priority. So if you have critical cameras, like it can be a supermarket entrance, it can be back counter, where you cannot tolerate any kind of downtime, then definitely those cameras can be plugged into this VIP port, where definitely you will get the VIP treatment. And it actually prioritize the transmission of those ports over other ports, which can ensure that your video feed is coming to the surveillance center, going to the NVR for the recording without any interruptions, and also the quality and the sensitive area monitoring is prevailed when you are using a VIP port for these kind of critical cameras. So that is also one advantage that you can use with the Hikvision switches. And going forward, we have also a mechanism to deliver the reliable power supply. Now, as you all know, if you take a standard UTP cable, you will see 4 pairs of wires. Normally, for the data transmission, we will be using only 2 pairs, and for the PoE, we will be using another 2 pairs. Otherwise, we can say 4 cores are used for the power, 4 cores are used for the data. But with Hikvision technology, we are using all 8 cores to transfer power. While all 8 cores are transferring the power, there will be another 4 cores. Out of those 8 cores will be transferring data and power simultaneously. So which is a very good initiative and a very good technology that we can definitely reduce the transmission loss. So as you can see in this chart, we are on the x-axis, we are showing the loss from 15%, 25% like that. And when definitely, you know, when the cable length is high, definitely there's a loss of transmission, what you are transmitting through the network. So as you can see, when the transmission distance increase, in the 8 core, the transmission loss is around 25%. But if you are using a 4 core data transmission system with a 4 core power, definitely it is more than that. It is closer to double. So I think definitely this kind of 8 core stable power supply is very reliable when it comes to the power in the camera, especially when the camera is having a white light or infrared light, which we actually need some additional power to work properly. So definitely having this kind of a benefit built into the switches is a very good initiative, as I mentioned, to deliver the effective power as well as reduce any kind of transmission losses. And going forward, this is one of the brilliant features that we have in our switches, which is the surge protection. As you may know, on a traditional switch, you will not find this kind of features where if there's a lightning situation, definitely your switches or even cameras can be directly burned. But having this kind of a surge protection built into the switch is a very critical thing where you can prevent any kind of lightning damaging your cameras. So, but to make effect of this feature, you have to definitely earth the wire, definitely provide the proper earth to the switch. So you have to keep that in mind. With that, you can have the built-in 6 kV surge protection with the switches. Moving forward, we have another feature called PoE Watchdog. It is kind of a monitoring tool or kind of a watchdog, precisely watching over the PoE delivery. Now, if you take a normal scenario, if the switch is not having this kind of a functionality, when the power is not delivered correctly to the camera, it might be offline, it might be not working on correctly. Then you have a trouble because you don't know how to whether it's PoE issue or any kind of a network issue, you don't know. But having this kind of a PoE watchdog definitely is able to monitor that power, and whenever it goes offline or something, he can immediately restart the power process, which will help you restart the device. Sometimes the cameras can be hanged, or sometimes there can be any kind of a disturbance which cause the camera to not respond. So immediately what all the IT guys will say, try a restart, right? So definitely the system can, the PoE watchdog can do it automatically for you. So which is very easy for troubleshoot and when you are maintaining, because the restart is taken automatically and you will not know even that was offline because it is already taken care of by the PoE watchdog built into the product. So going forward, also we have the port isolation, which is a critical thing when it comes to the security. And as you may know that there can be, especially in the switches, there can be some kind of a leakage between ports where the data can be sniffed. But with Hikvision port isolation technology, we are enhancing the security aspect of the network switch, where these the data leakage are ensured not to happen, not bound to happen with this kind of technology in place. And also at the same time, I have to remind it can prevent the broadcast storms from disabling the network, where we have seen in typical cybersecurity threats. So these switches are future-proof, built to handle these kind of situations. And finally, we are coming into a comparison of all the features that we talked about. You can see on the left side the intelligent PoE management, 300-meter long distance, 6 kV surge protection, IEEE high PoE power standard, VIP port transmission priority, and also 4 cores to 8 cores power supply delivery, PoE watchdog, and port isolation. So if you can see here, we have put our series. You can see value series in the distribution and the pro series. And value series, we, if you remember in the initial start Varna shot, there are two categories again, 100M and gigabit. Again, pro series also we have the 100M gigabit unmanaged, and also we have the unmanaged 100M dual uplink. Then also unmanaged gigabit high PoE version, then harsh environment PoE, industrial PoE, and unmanaged gigabit non-PoE switch categories. So as you can see, if you look at this table, it will explain what are the switches are having these features. Mostly you can see unmanaged gigabit high PoE switches and harsh environment PoE switches are having all these features built into their switches, which is a very good thing when we compare the products. So if you are requiring one of these features to be included, definitely you can refer to this slide and see which category it belongs to, and with that you can get an idea whether okay, my switch is capable of handling this or not. So definitely you can see there are only if you take 300-meter transmission distance, only 2 categories which are not only 4 categories which are not supporting, and there are 4 categories which are 5 categories which are supporting this kind of feature. And Varuna, now finally we are coming into the product details.
Yeah, Santa. So here they have shown about the distribution products, unmanaged PoE switches, value and pro series. Here we can see. So in in the upper table, you can see the models models of the value series switches with their port details and with their PoE budget, and all these switches support PoE extended mode up to 300 meters. And in the lower, you can see the Pro series switches, and as you can see in the brackets there, these Pro series cameras can provide higher power compared to the value series cameras. You can also see that in the PoE power budget column in these tables as well. So you can choose these switches as per your requirements, considering your power budgets and port requirements.
And Varna, one more thing to mention, that the camera power requirement is actually mentioned on the datasheet. Normally a standard PoE camera will consume around 2.5 watt, as I remember. So definitely when you are planning your CCTV system with IP technology and when you are deciding on your switches, it's very critical that you have a clear understanding about the PoE power budget of your switch And also you have to calculate by each camera model the power consumption and make sure that is sufficient to handle by this particular switch, or otherwise you have to go for a pure switch with more power budget. Right, Varuna?
Yeah, that's obvious. Okay. Here we can see high PO usage. I think Yasanta already informed you in the earlier slides about this high PoE. So in the distribution product lineup, there are also unmanaged PoE switches without more than a value series and pro series. There's also high PoE series as well. So, but here the only single port support these high PoE functions, and there are also two uplink ports in these switches because they are specifically designed for the surveillance system. So you can use one port for the NVR and other port to connect to the internet through a router as well. And here in this table we have demonstrated two high PoE models in our distribution product lineup unmanaged PoE series. So you can choose according to your requirement, as I told even before, according to your PO budget and port, considering your port's requirement. Actually, here you can see a visual representation of the dual uplink of our high PoE switch. These no, you can see the end devices, cameras, and likewise all these devices are connected to the PoE ports, and here in the right side corner of the switch you can see uh, uplink ports to the NVR and to connect to the internet via a router as well. And you should notice that the first port is the high PoE port of the switch, as it is already indicated in the switch as well. If you can look closely, you can see it. Now we have come to the unmanaged PoE switch with 1000 Mbps series. As we already talked before, this has all the same classification just like before with the value series and pro series. And when we are going from the value series to the pro series, the switching capability as well as the PoE power budget has been increased, and you can choose these switches according to the port requirement as well as PoE power budget requirement of your system. Here we can see the HP series, high PoE series of this unmanaged PoE 100 Mbps switches in our distribution product lineup. And these switches have this port isolation feature, PoE watchdog feature, and transmit long transmission range up to 300 meters. I think even our earlier switches that we have explained so far as this feature, the PoE port isolation and PoE watchdog, I think Yasanta already informed in the earlier slide, so I think you already have idea about these two features. And going through this table, you can see actually the number of ports have been increased while you are going from the left end to the right end, as well as the uplink ports and the PoE power budget of the switches as well. So you can go through data sheets and find the optimal switch for your requirement.
And Varuna, here you can see also that I think it has started supporting the SFP ports, so you can directly have your uplinks in fiber channels, which will be kind of a requirement when we are coming into this kind of networks. Definitely, we are talking about 1G networks here, so definitely the network throughput is a little bit high compared to 100M network. So definitely, as you can see here, we have the SFP ports. Sometimes you have the dual SFP in the high 16 port switch and 24 port switches, but in the 8 and 4 you can have single SFP ports, and sometimes some RJ45 uplink as well, definitely. So depending on your requirement, you can actually select a suitable switch, whether it's a SFP or RJ45, and you can actually configure the uplinks according to your requirements.
That's right, Shasanta. Thanks for the addition, Shasanta. So moving forward, in this distribution product lineup, we also got unmanaged harsh environment switches. So what kind of switches and why we use these switches? So looking at that, these switches are manufactured to use in certain environments that normal switches cannot be used. Okay, here the first point, wider temperature access design. So these switches can be used in a wider temperature range compared to other switches. The operating temperature of these switches range from -30 Celsius and up to 65 Celsius. So the design of the switches are reliable, fan-free design, and also this is a DIN rail design, so it will be easier for installers to install these switches in a complex installation environments as well. Also, the outer casing of these switches are metal, and so it will be solid and it will have a strength to withstand the harsh environments. And also, these switches got IP40 protection rating as well. These in this harsh environment switches also we got separate models. So you can see ranging from 1 PoE ports to 2 PoE ports, and ranging from 1 high PoE ports to two high PoE ports, and uh, to 60 watt PoE power budget to 110 watt power budget. So there are different configurations we have. So you can choose these switches according to your switching requirement. Here is the IT product lineup. Actually, this is more inclined to use at the aggregation layer of the IP camera project with less than 100 channels. So all these gigabits ports in these switches will provide high speed transmission for your installation, and also these switches have a safe and reliable 4 kV high surge protection. And this is a simple switch, so you can just plug and play and use this switch as well. This is the IT product switch with the plastic desktop switch variant. This is specifically designed for home and office scenarios. I mean, it's simply you can just plug your IP cameras, your printers, your computers, your IP phones, and all your devices, and manage your devices through this switch. And specifically, these switches are designed for home and office scenarios, and it is small in size, in white in color. So you can just simply put it in a place that uh, you can simply use it in office or home environment. Yasanta, shall we give them an idea about the optical modules that we have?
Definitely, Varun. As we mentioned that since our switches are supporting the SFE uplinks, definitely the compatible modules are there. And as per your requirement, you are able to select the suitable SFE modules. So as you can see, we have quite a few depending on the fiber type, whether it's a single mode that you are using for a long distance or whether you are using a multi-mode for a shorter distance. You are able to use the our optical modules. So you can see here from the left we have 1.25G LC module, single mode, which can also support up to 20 km, and it comes as a pair. So definitely you have to use it as a pair. And also we have single mode duplex fiber also, which you can use as a single unit. And also we have the LC, the 1.25G connectors as well with the duplex power, which you can duplex fiber, which you can have with the 1 km range. And also we have the single mode single fiber 20 km with 10G capacity. So as per your requirement, definitely you are able to select the optical modules when you are placing the order for switches, and you are able to utilize the optical module according to your requirement. And Varun, I think we are moving ahead now. We have finalized the more of a consumer or otherwise distribution product lineup, and we are now talking about the project, which is kind of a high-end products, right?
Yeah, obviously. Let's go forward and see what we have enough for the project product lineup.
Yes, and Varuna, we have a question in the Q&A. Is the surge is absorbed by the NVR? If it is a DVR, about the mechanism of surge protection. Actually, the surge protection is about diverting the high voltage to the earth. So as we mentioned, the switches are coming with the 6 kV, and sometimes the aggregation layer is coming with the 4 kV built-in surge protection. So what you have to do is you have to connect the proper earth. So when there's a high surge situation, it is not damaging the equipment, but it is diverted to the earth line. But for the NVR, for some models, I think we have the built-in surge protection, but some models is not there. So definitely using a dedicated surge protector at this kind of situation would be ideal uh, in terms of securing it against the lightning. So I believe that Mr. Suresh got the answer, and if need any further clarifications, you can also open another Q&A. So with that, Varuna, let's look at the project product models, and definitely here also we have some sort of project model highlights, right?
Yeah. First of all, we have given highlight about unmanaged industrial switches in project product lineup, just like I described in the distribution product lineup. This ha- harsh environments, just like harsh environment switches I described, these industrial switches also support a wide operating temporary range from -40 Celsius up to 75 Celsius. So you can use this switch in a wide operating temperature, and because of that, you can use this switch in a long time in outside environment with a stable manner. And also, this switches also is made by a metal outer frame, and because of that, it has a higher durability as well as IP40 protection rating as well. Apart from that, optionally, you can use these power supply ELG 15048A power supply as well. You can use this for the outdoor environment. Specifically, this made for the outdoor environments, and with using these power supplies, you can have dual redundant power supplies for these switches as well. So it will be a more reliable operation for these switches. And these switches also contain high PoE power supply. So if you have like PD set that require higher POC, higher power, you can plug those PDZ cameras to these switches as well.
And Varuna, I think this kind of power supply is more critical when we are going into industrial environments, because the voltage is not actually very much stable when we talk about industrial environments, right?
Yeah, actually, this power supply has a wide voltage input range from 100 to 305 AC voltage input range it has. So even at very fluctuated levels, it will give a proper output to the switch at 48 DC voltage. So uh, it is a great power supply to use in outdoor applications as well as voltage fluctuation situations. And as this is an industrial switches, you can use these switches in factory environments, transportation industry and construction sites, and energy manufacturing sites, airports, and safe city products as well, because of these industrial grade capabilities that we have included in these switches. It will withstand this environment even at these shown outdoor environments with ranging temperatures. And as you can see, you can connect all these IP cameras, and at the IP cameras at the outside environments, and just connect those cameras to a core switches at a reliable location and have a proper surveillance center by using these switches, industrial switches. Okay. Here we can see the unmanaged 1000 Mbps switches in the project product lineup, and these switches are recommended to use in the aggregation layer of the projects that use less than 100 IP cameras. So this switch is really easy to use, so you can just plug and play and use these switches. And it's also support 12 gigabyte RJ45 ports and 12 gigabit SFP ports as well.
I think Varun, in this aggregation layer, definitely there's a lot of bandwidth, especially coming from this kind of access switches, right?
Multiple access switches are directly connected to this aggregation layer. So this switch has a higher capability compared to these access switches, as you can see also in the products highlight that we have mentioned. Okay. Now we are going to talk about the web managed switches. So these web managed switches we can basically manage and configure these switches using a web page. So it will be easier for us to configure and maintain these switches in a convenient manner. Isn't so, Yasanta?
Definitely, Varun. I think when it comes to the high-end projects, it is very critical that you have a clear idea about your network and you have a single point of control to handle all the maintenance tasks, especially, and get all that statistics to get an idea about your network performance is a very critical thing when you are talking about high-end products, the high-end projects, because there's so many devices connected to the network, and you have to have a clear idea how your traffic is flowing through each port, each device. So having this kind of a web management interface is a very important and very valuable thing, and you can definitely handle your advanced functions like even creating VLANs and also directly configuring your ports and port even link aggregation like that advanced functions. You are definitely able to control these using this kind of a web managed switch. And I think Varuna, definitely having this VLAN division is one of the key things that you can use for segregate particular networks into areas where you can prevent unauthorized access, and you can also delegate your network bandwidth according to the each segment requirement, right?
Yeah, obviously. And it will also reduce network blockages close by the broadcast terms as well.
Exactly. So I think mainly focusing on the security side and having the more control over the network would be a superb thing when you are talking about high-end projects, especially multi-location projects. In the same premises, you have different buildings. It can be different buildings or different areas that you have to have separate control. So you are easy off with a web managed switch, which is having the VLAN division. And I think Varuna, talking about the web managed product series, we have also broken it into two categories with the 100M and 1000M. So could you please give us a little overview about these products?
Yeah, obviously. So as you can initially, we have classified these switches to two categories, to 100 Mbps range and 1000 Mbps range as well. So in both these ranges, you can see we have different uh, PoE power budgets and uh, different number of port combinations, and but almost all of these switches support 300 meters of extended PoE mode if you are using the CCTV to connect these switches to CCTV cameras. Now we are going ahead and looking at the full managed switches in the project product lineup. So these products are simple and efficient simple and efficient configuration. So you can have various methods to configure and manage these switches. You can use web management, console management, telnet, and SNMP as well. So it will be really easy and efficient for you to configure and manage these switches. By using these switches, you can efficiently manage the network because these networks support VLAN. Uh, the user can easily divide the local area network according to the requirement. And the third point is the flexible networking. So because the switches support Ethernet plus optical, also the optical ports as well. So it will cater multiple uh, requirement and various uh, various scenarios as well, because you can use both Ethernet and optical port as well. The fourth point is high stability and security. So this switch support STP, RSTP, NSTP spanning tree protocols. So it will improve the network stability and network security as well. Okay, here you can see uh, our fully managed project products in a fully managed features in our project product lineup. So in the left side of the table, you can see 100 Mbps variants, and the right hand side you can see the 1000 Mbps variants. And these also have different kind of port combinations and different values of PoE budget, so you can select these switches according to your requirement as it suits you.
So normally I think full managed switch can be also used as a core switch, right?
Yeah, obviously this is we can use this switch as a core switch. Yasant, can you explain a little bit about these protocols and what these switches
Yeah,
were?
yeah. Also, now we have actually come to the last category of the project product switches, which is the L3. I think L3 is the most advanced switch that you can get on a switch range, which is having the fully fledged L3 capabilities, including the advanced routing protocols starting from RIP, BGP, or SPF, like that. If you are familiar with the networking and handling actually L3 workloads, definitely you will be aware about these protocols where these these features are built into these L3 switches, and definitely you are able to have more control compared to the web managed and smart managed switches. You are able to have more control over your network, especially in terms of security, where you are able to uh, have the policy based routing, and also you are able to have the redundant backup, where at any point of failures it is able to handle the failures, as well as, and also in terms of management, it is supporting the SNMP standard management modes, as well as the connectivity through console, telnet, SSH, and web TPA, TFTP, and RMON. So you can see there are many ways that you are able to manage these switches. So it is more flexible and more kind of advanced, and you are having the best control over your network. So as this kind of switches are definitely going in for the core as the core switch when you are designing a network. And Varun, I think in the L3 product applications, if you see that here we have multiple areas where at the access level, access layer, there are access switches and the aggregation switches, which are actually connecting finally into the core switches. So these core switches are in L3, and also we are actually having kind of a redundancy here. As you can see, two core switches are there, and it is able to handle any point of failure in the path, and also it is having the firewall control, so you are able to have the rules where you can manage the ensure that your data network is secure, as well as it is able to give you the necessary bandwidth throughput to connect to the NVRs, decoders, and normally keyboards, and finally the surveillance centers, which are normally used by these devices. So definitely, it is not a rule of thumb, but you can use it for aggregation as well, not only the core. And we have two models actually. You can see this model DS-3E3740, which is coming with the 40 ports, can be used for projects having less than 500 cameras. And if you have a project less than 400 cameras, you can also go with DS-2E3756TF model as well. So definitely, these are more advanced L3 switches which are having in the data center level. So you are able to have more control over your network and have more security features built into this to have more efficiency as well as the more security. And finally, since we have already discussed about our distribution models as well as the project models, I think now it's time to discuss about the application scenarios and what kind of models that we could recommend for each kind of project. Before moving on, we have a Q&A. I will read it out for you. The question is about the protection of camera because it does not have an Ethernet terminal, but we can create it to the body of the camera. Earth terminal, but we can create it to the body of the camera. If the distance is between the camera and the NVR is probability of surges will be high. So yeah, that is also correct. Normally, the standard way is like we have the surge protection on the camera side as well, and we have the surge protection on the switch side as well. So there will be two-way protection. If it is a surge is for any reason coming from the camera side, it is able to immediately ground it. So you normally before the network is connected to the camera, it runs through the surge protector and the grounding happens there, and from the surge protector the camera takes the signal. So definitely to minimize any kind of a lightning threads, you are also able to use a lightning protector or surge protector at the camera. Each camera can have a surge protector at the end of where the connection is taking place. So that is also one good recommendation that we can also suggest to you. And going back to the application scenarios, Varuna, I think we can start with the small scale projects where we define a small scale project by mentioning the number of cameras. Whether it's less than 100, we can define it as a small scale project in this context. And as you can see, the number of products that we have proposed and the topology is on the bottom of this slide. Definitely, when we talk about the cameras having 100 or less, it's definitely like retail stores, shops. It can be a small shop, a small office, or sometimes it can be any kind of a retail location basically. So where the camera count is less than 100. So definitely for the access switches, those should come with the PoE, and you can recommend depending on your requirement. We have recommended some models as well as these access switches can be connected to the cameras, as well as if you have any wireless access points, you also can connect that to that, have a wireless connectivity. And basically, after having that, we are recommending DS3E0524-E kind of aggregation switch, which is capable of delivering that throughput coming from all that cameras and as well as access points if you have, and back to the servers, back to the NVRs and decoders, where you have a smooth drive. So this is kind of a recommendation that we are providing for the projects which you have less than 100 cameras. And what about medium scale projects? I think Varuna, medium scale projects definitely like hotels, definitely have more cameras.
Yeah.
Shopping malls, yeah.
Up to 300 cameras basically, we have categorized from 100 to 300 cameras.
Yes, 100 to 300 definitely. We will have in like projects which are having hotels or shopping malls. Definitely there are more than 100 cameras. So what you can do is you can upgrade like your access switch layer could be the same, but aggregation switch will be having sometimes optical modules, sometimes it will be having more switching capacity to handle that kind of a traffic coming from all those cameras, and deliver that traffic to the decoders for the live view as well as NVR for the recording. And finally, talking about the large scale projects where we have more than 300 and less than 400 cameras, definitely we can use a core switch. And as you can see here, we are proposing 2 core switches and one aggregation switch, as well as 2 categories of access switches and also optical modules that you can use for this project. So depending on your requirement and the distance, actual transmission distance, you can discuss and decide what kind of a transmission medium that you are going to use, whether it's electric or optical, and what kind of aggregation layers, access layer, and core switches that you can put. So these are just recommendations. Actually, depending on your requirement, you are able to pick a suitable switch now with all the comprehensive details that we have shared so far. And also talking about this kind of a big scale projects, actually it can be a large building or multiple building. Apartment could be like that, and or something like a large stadium. So it is normally space is relatively large, and because of the higher number of cameras, the bandwidth requirement is very high. So you have to make sure that properly these requirements are taken into considering at each layer, like access layer, aggregation layer, and the core layers, and you are able to deliver that performance through the network that you propose. So that is one of the critical things that you have to consider when you're planning this kind of a project. And with that, Varun, I think we have come to the last segment of our training today, which is we are talking about our Spotlight product series, right?
Yeah, our smart managed switches. So let's go ahead and show them what the smart managed switches are actually.
Yeah, but I think the major reason that we have proposed this to be included this in training, because we have seen many projects in Sri Lanka is conducted using L2 switches, otherwise non-managed switches. So sometimes they are facing a lot of trouble in terms of troubleshooting and identifying the bandwidth issues. But smart switch is kind of a replacement for that, where you can avoid a lot of problems and you still have good control over your network and you can easily troubleshoot. So that is one of the main reasons for us to decide to include this part in this training. And looking at the pain points, normally if you are using a normal unmanaged switch, you don't have a clear idea about what is your network, how it is structured. Of course, you will know physically it is there, wirings are running here and there, but it is very difficult to get a bird's eye view of your network. And when there are network failures, since if it is having a lot of access switches and aggregation layer switches, you are in deep trouble, because you don't know whether it's uplink error or whether it's error coming from access switch or it's a device itself. So it is kind of difficult to troubleshoot. So in terms of frequent network failures, and also you are not able to idle your case, and you are not able to do the troubleshooting accordingly. So that's also a bottleneck when you are using a non-managed, otherwise unmanaged switch. So what is the answer? Lies within the Hikvision managed switches, where you have the first thing is the visualized topology management. Definitely, the system is able to generate you a visualization of your network, where you can see where each devices are connected and how it is connected and which port is being used by, and also to mention the network health monitor, where you are able to monitor the bandwidth utilization as well as the whether the devices are online or offline. So all those can be activated through this kind of a smart managed switch. It is just one step ahead from using an unmanaged switch. Not much of a cost difference. We encourage you to use the smart managed switches with your projects, which can give you more peace of mind when you are troubleshooting and when you are maintaining these kind of systems. And these are also capable of pushing the alarms real time when there's any failure, point of failure or downtime. And also the switch is capable of giving you the video control and preview, just to double check when something goes wrong, whether the video footage is working. All that verifications you can do then and there. And Varuna, why don't you explain the entire strategy behind our smart managed switches.
Yeah, I think now Yasant had given you an overview and why we have proposed smart managed switches and what are the capabilities of this. So as you can see, you can just simply connect all our Hikvision products, IP cameras, NVRs, DVRs, our access control units, alarm panels, video intercoms, and everything. You can connect to this our smart managed switches. So this our switches compatible with almost our Hikvision IP devices, and by using these switches, as Yasanti informed you, you can have a complete capability of operation and you have maintenance capability. So you can identify, yeah, you can have a unified topology. You can have push alarm notifications if there is any faults, and you can do remote configurations using the smart managed switches, and you can obtain informations about the device status, and as well as you can get an idea about network bandwidth and find network path to specific devices and find device to get device recognition, as well as obviously you can use the live view of the cameras by using these network switches, smart managed switches.
And I think with Varuna's very clear explanation, you can get an idea. It is not only about CCTV. So as a ELV systems provider, we have taken it to the next level. Where if you are using, even if you are deploying even a simple access control system or any kind of alarm panel system, you are still able to utilize this kind of a smart managed switch, and you are able to identify those devices through your network, and you are even able to generate the topology. I think the major benefit is using a smart managed switch, which is a small addition of the cost which you pay for a unmanaged switch. So I think adds more benefit and it is more useful when you are deploying your systems in this way. And we have some slides to show that as well, right, Varuna? So basically, the deployment can be very simple with this kind of a smart managed switch, and having you the view of network health and the remote maintenance is a very critical thing that you can use to easily troubleshoot. And also the maintenance efficiency will be very high, and you can locate any problems, what is the error, whether it's a physical error, whether it's a device error, you can immediately find and give the solutions with this kind of a smart managed switch. So normally these are some topology visualizations that we can show you. So as you can see, this is directly taken from the iVMS 4200 software. So what you can do is like a normal other device, you can add this device, add this smart managed switch to our management software like iVMS 4200 or HikCentral. And what you can do is from there, you can generate this kind of a visualized topology, which will be able to immediately identify the access layer switch, the aggregation layer switches, and the core switches. Obviously, if this is the core switch, definitely it will be able to identify all other equipment connected to the network, and it will be able to map the paths automatically. Then you will know if you take a particular dome camera, it is connected to this switch and at this location, and it is connected to this aggregation switch. From there, it is coming to the top core switch, and from there, it is going to the NVR. So you can have a clear idea how the network flow through this your network. And normally, not only as we mentioned, only the cameras, it can also have the ability to identify NVRs. It can identify decoders. It can identify the other storage devices of Hikvision. So almost any IP device can be recognized by this kind of a smart switch. And the having the flexibility to separate, like isolate in the topology is another great thing that you can easily troubleshoot. Like if you want to focus only on one particular camera which is giving you trouble, you can isolate that only that camera and just monitor that network path. And you can also with that kind of isolation, you can easily start troubleshooting. And also you are able to query the devices. So if you want to search a particular device in a topology, especially in cases we have many cameras or many devices connected to a network, so to easily find a device, you are able to easily search a device. And also select a start point and an end point of your network and see how that traffic is going through which switch and which way. All that data you can visually generate through this kind of a visual topology. So as you can see, another thing is the network health monitor. So you can see if you select a network path or if you select a device, it will indicate you visually. For example, if the line is blue color, it will show the bandwidth is normal. Whether it can be a 1G line, it will be a 100M line. So the switch knows how much bandwidth it can handle, and it will show the colors according like on a traffic map. So if you are using Google Maps, you will know that when there's a traffic is high, it is showing very strong red color, right? So like that, you can have the visualization here. So if it is blue color, the bandwidth will be normal. Yellow means you can set your threshold. Actually in the interface, you can set a threshold like a percentage. So when your first threshold exceeds, it will show in yellow. When your second threshold exceeds, it will show in red. And what you can do is you can utilize this to see which paths are using more bandwidth and causing problems. Then you can also implement your resolvements, like the suggested ways that you can resolve those things without any additional efforts. So as you can see on this screen, you can see when you select a network path, it will show the transmission rate in kbps, and it is showing both ways, like upstream and downstream. So you can have a clear idea whether the traffic is going upstream or downstream, and also you can get the device details such as the device IP address and whether port is whether it's a 100M full duplex, half duplex, or whether it's a 1000M. Like that, you can get a clear idea. So not only that, you are able to set up your alarm. So when certain network or network path exceeds the threshold that you set, you are able to get an alarm directly through that. And when there's an alarm, as you can see on this picture, it will immediately highlight that product. You can see it is in red color. So, and also you can see the event handling, and you can see the alarms, whether it's a network interface, whether it was disconnected, or whether port is powered off. Like that, you can set up your alarms accordingly, and you can visually see those alarms on the dashboard, which is very easy when you are troubleshooting a network system. And also for the IP cameras, we can directly live view from this interface itself, whether you are using HikCentral or iVMS 4200. From the topology itself, you can just double click and open the camera and see live view. And if it is a PTZ camera, you are able to control the PTZ directly from here and see whether it is responding to your the request for the PTZ functionality. So I think that is also a very good thing. So as a summary, this kind of a topology generation can be separated into key two areas. One is the network management, where you are able to see the topology, you are able to see the bandwidth, you are able to see the network devices and do their remote configuration. And if you are using this kind of system for video management, you are able to see the live view, PTZ control, and also do the remote configuration of IP camera. So bridging the true power of network into this one simple management interface, where you have the total control of your network, you are able to monitor, you are able to set up alarms, alerts, and effectively troubleshoot without any additional efforts. So I think that is the beauty of having this kind of a smart managed switch over a normal unmanaged switch. So we have a kind request to you. If you are designing future projects, maybe you can consider, instead of using a normal unmanaged switch, using a smart managed switch at a fraction of a cost, where you can get more benefits and you can have more peace of mind with this kind of a functionality. So let's quickly look at our iVMS 4200 functionality with this kind of video. First thing you will do is obviously you will add the device, add the network switch. So these switches are same switch, the managed switch. You can see it is coming with the IP address. And once you have done that, you can go to the topology. And in the topology, you are able to generate the topology. You can click on add icon, and it will automatically map and give you the your network structure, as you can see here. So I think after that, you can also set the bandwidth threshold for each lines, and it will, depending on the utilization, it will show the colors of each line like a traffic. And also any device you can just double click and you can see the status. What are the ports being used? How is the memory usage? How is the CPU usage? How is the PoE power is going on? And also you can just right click and also load another additional information, including the each port status, whether it's a bit rate and whether it's full duplex or half duplex, and you can also see the statistics, how many port packets being transferred through each port, that kind of information. And also you are able to do the remote configuration of this switch directly from iVMS 4200, where you are able to update its settings, especially query the log. This kind of network devices are having a log, so you can query what kind of operations being executed at these devices, and also other parameters. And any other device, if you just double click, you will see the upstream rate, downstream rate, the IP address and the path it is connecting to. And let's say now this red color mark means one port is being physically disconnected, and immediately it is able to give you an alert, and it will say this port is now not working, or it is PoE power interface turned off. Like that you can get real-time alerts, and once it's plugged back and it is up and running again, you will see it is coming back to normal situation. So this is actually very critical. Especially you can have this dashboard as one of your surveillance center screens as well, so even the monitoring person can have a clear idea whether your system is operating without any problems, which will be a very good thing. And as you mentioned, they are able to control the PD set, do the live view of the camera. Just right click on the network camera and just select the live view, and you will be presented with these controls if it is a PD set. Otherwise, if it's a normal camera, you will see the live view itself like this. And you can easily search the device by IP address or by name or by MAC address, and you can go to that, go for that segment. And if you want to, as well as certainly isolate one network path, you can select the camera starting point and the end point, which is the NVR, and you can generate how from where to where the data is flowing. So as you can see, from camera to there's a switch, from switch to the network, and when you click on each path, you will see what kind of a bandwidth it is being used and how it is performing. And this kind of isolation is very good if you want to troubleshoot your network and get a clear idea. So that is coming from the iVMS 4200. We will have a look at another quick video which is coming from HikCentral Professional, which is our higher grade software. If you are going for a cameras more than 100, we recommend using HikCentral Pro as the management software. So HikCentral Pro actually give you some can give you some additional benefits, additional features compared to iVMS 4200, because this is more powerful compared to iVMS 4200. So as usual, you just go and add the device, your network switch, and once it's online, you can also have other devices connecting to the system. So keep in mind, you have to add the network switch under the network transmission device category. And once you have added your devices, you can just go to the control client of HikCentral, and from there you have to select health monitoring under the maintenance category. And from there you have to go to you will definitely see in the overview, automatically there's the monitoring is generated, the map is generated for you, and you can see by clicking on each network path, you can see the downstream, upstream, the sender IP address, receiver IP address, and other network related details. And also definitely you are able to set up the monitoring time, whether how many levels, how the report should be refreshed, and how many topology levels it should monitor, and the threshold directly can be set from here, from where to where the alert should be given. So you can see some devices are in red color, some devices are showing correctly. So if it is red color, definitely it's offline, So like in the iVMS 4200, you can see the port status and each port, what are the devices connected and what is the bandwidth it is being used. And also you are able to receive the alarms directly from the switch itself. Then this device came offline at this time, like that. And also like in iVMS 4200 in HikCentral also you are able to remotely configure the device, your switch especially. You are able to configure your ports, the network parameters and the link aggregations, and as well as query the logs, which is an important thing. So you can see each port, you can control the bit rate, whether it's duplex, full duplex or half duplex, the flow control, and enable, disable each port. And also you can directly get the device log from the HikCentral control client log query interface, which is also easy comparing it from getting it from the configuration menu. So we are going to unplug the port 4 now, and you can see the simulation of the camera disconnection. So when we refresh the topology here, you can see on the switch it is showing the alarm, and when you go to the details you can see port 4 is in red color and it's showing that this device got disconnected. And we are going to plug it back again and see whether it is recovering. So normally within 1 minute, as we can actually configure the refresh interval from 1 minute to any number of minutes. So automatically from HikCentral it will be refreshed. So we can wait for 1 minute and see whether it is recovered after connecting it back. You can see the device is back online, and when we come and refresh here, you can see the red color is now gone because it is recovered. And the alarm message can be automatically removed when it is connected. So here from the device alarm, what we can do is we can also acknowledge, and then system will know that we already know about that one, and it will keep it as a acknowledgement, but the line will be in red color, so we know that link there's a problem. And like in iVMS also, you can see right click on any device and go to the details, and you can see the camera live view, as well as you can control the PTZ using the PTZ icon on the bottom right corner. And here also you can have the search option, so you are able to search for devices without any trouble. So easily you can type the device IP address or part of the MAC address, and you can just search for device name. And you can also show the network paths between two devices, and like kind of a isolation. So you can see it's the selected devices, how the connection is going on, and you can see the details of which port is being used at the particular switch, and how the connection is taking place in terms of the bandwidth and the data. So as you can see, the HikCentral and iVMS 4200 both are compatible in handling this kind of a smart managed switch. So you are able to use anything but any project above 100 cameras, we recommend to go with HikCentral Professional. So with that, I think, Varuna, we have come to the end of today's training. So with that, Varuna, I think it is time for us to say goodbye for today's training. And thank you very much again for participating in our trainings continuously. And we believe that you will continue to participate in our trainings and gain good knowledge from it. And if you have any feedback regarding today's training, we kindly invite you to go to the Hike Dash portal and use the training feedback link to provide us the feedback. Thank you very much, Varuna, for your contributions today. And thank you everyone for participating. We'll see you all on our next training.